My name is John Daw. I've met a lot of you already, but I'm on the AFP Techno Task Force, which is responsible for putting together the conference. And I'm pleased to welcome you to this afternoon's workshop, taking Facebook to the next level with their development. I always like to say that is not your intended destination. Please just board at this time. You will have evaluations for today's workshops emailed to you. Again, we cannot stress the importance of you completing those evaluations. This is a pilot program for the association, and where we go from this inaugural conference depends on your feedback. So please do take that seriously and complete your evaluation form. They always put me to introduce people after lunch because I make people stand up. So everybody stand up while I talk about their. No naps. Naps are at the visa booth downstairs. All right, let's do some stretching. Pick some apples. Okay. Derek Feldman is the Chief Executive Officer of Achieve. Let's go to the side.
This is the best intro ever.
Other side. Derek is also on the board of AFP International. He is on the AFP International Youth Philanthropy Task Force. He's got a whole bunch of credentials that you can read about later. He is also a very frequent contributor to various trade publications on the topic of fundraising, technology, and nonprofit marketing. So you can sit down now, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce Derek.
Thank you. All right, I appreciate it. And of course, having the job right after lunch to keep you awake is a hard one, but I'll make sure we get there and we'll have everybody staying awake and wide alert. So we're going to talk about 45 minutes about Facebook and what's happening. Before we discuss campaigns and fundraising, how many in the room have actually raised a substantial amount of money on Facebook? Yeah. So we're going to talk about what's happening and why that occurs, and we'll discuss if you are to do fundraising, what we should be doing. But before we get there, we have to discuss this platform that we call Facebook. All of us actually participate in it in some way. I mean, how many of us have a personal page, right? And how many of you manage the brand page for your organization? Oh, good. So we have a lot of the decision and writers here. Well, we have to actually understand Facebook from a different perspective. How many of you know anybody besides Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook? Yeah, one. This big product that we call Facebook, this one that requires social conversation and everything, and that all of you are sitting in this room, and we really only know one other person. Besides just Mark, it might be somebody else, like some of their management given the IPO. We're going to spend the first 15 minutes actually talking about 3 people that make your life as a nonprofit manager happen on Facebook. And you probably never met them before. So let's go ahead and get started. When Facebook started, Mr. Zuckerberg created a couple statements regarding what his purpose was. The first purpose was that we're going to discover information all the way through links to web pages, but also from the people and the things they care about. He did something really smart. He said, what I'm going to do is actually create an environment in which that offline we do all of the time, which is tell other people what I'm doing, what I care about, how you should get involved, and fundamentally, at the same time, the pictures and things that consist of our environment about where we are. He created a platform for us to share. And as he says here, the more social and personalized experiences we have is everywhere. It's social. It's in every environment that we have right now. Prior to TripAdvisor happening, you asked and told friends when you were going to Orlando where you should go, and they gave you some ideas. Technology today has allowed the sharing aspect to happen. What technology is also allowed to do for us to do is to allow you to share something with a brand new audience. That's the power of Facebook. He also says we're building toward a web where the default is automatically social, regardless, right? How many of you go to a website and you see connect with Facebook, the single source login? That's happening. It's going to happen more often than ever before. But the default is social because We want to, as marketers, create a personalized social experience with every single one of you. If this room was full of donors, let's imagine for a minute you walk past and every single one of your donors was here in this room. You'd walk in and try to spark conversation, right? Right, we would never deny that. Well, what we would do is create it in a social environment. We wouldn't start pitching people for asking for money, although we might have some aggressors here that might do that. But that we would spend time conversing and hopefully getting to a point where we say, you know what, I hope that you'll support us because you're so passionate. We also said too is that people have really gotten comfortable not only sharing more information than you probably should, but also different kinds, and the more open people are. And he said, actually, the more open you are, and if you give people the system, more often than not, positive things happen. Occupy Wall Street occurred. The Arab Spring, all of those things happen in a social environment online, where the connection happened between content and their individual interests. This is the social graph. This is what he created when he started Facebook and said the idea was that these connections actually already exist. The technology just was so simple to create those to make it happen together. The intention too, as Chris Cox, by the way, does anyone know Chris? He's the VP of product. He's the one that created Timeline. He's the one that has created a lot of the things that you do as a brand. He said one of the components we're sharing now is not just content, the information and everything else, but your ability to tell all of your friends about something you care about. And the original receiver and developer of that information has been open to a brand new audience. And that's what we're infatuated with. We really are. We're infatuated with the fact that we can send something to another person and I can press like and now my whole community sees it. And as fundraisers, we're infatuated with the concept of how can we turn that into money? How can we actually get there? The problem with that, though, is that that environment was meant for conversation. It was never intended to fundraise. And if any of you actually started Facebook with the intention to raise money, you should probably get out now. The intention of the environment is for you to develop stronger relationships. More often than not, the people who are in your Facebook community are your donors. Take a minute to actually go through your fans and your Facebook page, and you'll realize it's the same people that have already connected with you maybe in an offline world. Now what they've done is that they've said, what I want to do is connect with you instantaneously in an impulsive environment called Facebook. This gentleman, Jim Pierce, he's actually the mobile developer at Facebook. How many of you spend so much time creating a wonderful looking page? Do you know half of the people that view the content actually do it through their mobile devices? Some of you actually just shared that right before you got in here. You were all on your iPhones. We were all on different devices. You could actually you could like an organization and never see the timeline image. It doesn't matter because it's in our mobile environment. And in fact, he said, obviously, that if it was created today, it'd be much better in a mobile platform potentially than in a web-based piece. But us, as nonprofits, we sit in front of our computers all day, and some of us as social media managers say, we've got to churn this stuff out and create strategies around it, when the individual user is between meetings, seeing you in their newsfeed. They're actually between different types of things. And what Facebook now has moved into is a much more impulsive nature. We do a study called the Millennial Donor Study every year where we survey 20 to 30-year-olds on their giving habits and engagement. And they're all using it in the impulse moment and said, if you cannot capture me in the 140 impulsive nature, I will move on. And unfortunately, that means potentially never coming back. There are 450 million of those users that actually spend more of their time consuming content. Here's a graph. For some of you in the back, might be a little tough to read. From down here, the ones that we'll call the inactives. They're the ones that just sign up. How many of you just sign up just to see what's going on? Like a page, Brandon, all of that. Then we've got the spectators, the ones that just like to hear from their friends. They never like any other brands. They just want to hear what their friends are doing. This is especially around the time of the weekends, right? Let's see what happened over the weekend with our friends and family. We have the joiners and the collectors, the ones who are actually consuming everything that you read and write, and they love it, but they never reciprocate. Because when you give things in Facebook, you actually get more than you give. Almost all of us view information, but we never respond. How many of you replied to any tweets today? How many of you are on Twitter? At least half the room hasn't responded. Does that mean that you're not social media engaged? No. Just some of us are the bigger critics, the collectors, the creators, the ones who actually develop the stuff for everybody else to read. But not everybody is going to really read it. And in fact, when you look at age across the top, what we find is that we do have a substantial amount of young that are joiners and spectators, but really in the older ages is when they're just joining to see what's going on. Some of you are potential donors as well. Anybody know her? Caroline. Caroline is the head of brand and marketing at Facebook. You should get to know her because she's the actual one. Although we're considered nonprofits, with Facebook they consider us a brand pages and environments. She's the one that's actually creating a lot of the different things that come out through the corporate Facebook usage of using their fan pages to not only transact, but also to communicate. She's got a great story talking about, like a brand story, we have to have a great experience on the wall. Otherwise, we tend to ignore you, and we'll consistently ignore you, regardless if you're selling a product or not. If I have a really poor experience overall, I'll stop thinking about you. I'll spend time with other brands or move on to the things that are more important. But that challenge with a brand and who you are is that you have to talk in a conversation. And we are so used to traditional formats of telling people what we're doing. The storefront, which is our website, right? We started out creating websites where we were to put everything on our website. How many of you said that initially when we first did our first websites? And then what have we done since that time? We've retracted. We've taken away things. And we said, let's simplify. I bet you said this to a web designer. I want clean design, white space. We say those things. Ask any web designer in the world, they'll laugh at that because every single client says that same thing. Because we know that we've been taking away from the message that can be very, very confusing. Well, let's actually hear from her directly on where she thinks brands are going.
One of the things I want you to lead with is that human behavior hasn't changed. We still live in networks. We still rely on certain people to help us make decisions. I know to ask certain people that have traveled a lot where a good hotel might be. I know other people to ask if I'm thinking about a product I should buy for my children. We make those decisions intuitively every single day. Now it's being available on a large scale for marketers to participate. And if you look at the most popular groups on Facebook, they're the same groups you would think about identifying with in your offline world. Your family, your friends, your school, your hobbies. These are the same groups you have in an offline world, now we're replicating it in an online world. One of the things that happens when you have a group like this and network is this effect. We like to call it the story engine. Because every day, all of us are sharing stories. It's exactly the way we have a conversation. It's like asking, how are you? What do you think about this place? Where should we go eat? What movie have you seen? What sneakers should I buy if I'm a runner? Whatever the question may be, we're all communicating every single day. And this is called the stories engine, which is completely empowering what's happening on the dialogue on Facebook. We call this social marketing, which basically means that our friends are helping us make sense of the products and brands that we're all talking about anyway. And they are much more effective when you hear it from your friend than you're hearing it from the brand itself. Again, a fundamental shift for how brand marketers are thinking about it. Nielsen helped us measure exactly how effective this was. You're 68% more likely to actually remember that there was an ad if your friend's photo and name was associated with it. You're twice as likely to remember what the message actually said, and you're 4 times more likely to actually purchase something. The obvious answer for brands then is to figure out how to become part of the conversation and how to let consumers and your fans talk about your product as opposed to you talking to the consumer about what you're doing. We think it's really...
So, how many have met her before? Yeah, she is the one that's developing a lot of the product with Chris Pop. So, let's go ahead now and move into some nonprofit stuff. Now that we have our basics on Facebook, right? First, taking it to the next level, today's conversations are sparked by 4 major pieces. The first one is being human. The environment is not meant for you not to be human. How many of you hang out in places that are awkward? We don't do it. We would never go to a Facebook page where the conversation was awkward. We would never stay at a place where the only thing I heard you say every time is ask me for money in a formal manner. That's what a donor relationship is. So, by the people that make our stories, the human aspect of what we do, every single person here serves a community of people you help. Those are all of the stories we need to share. The second one is imagery. Imagery is so powerful, actually much more powerful than the things that you are talking about online and when you write. I don't know if you know this, but most of your volunteers and donors will never experience your cause because they're busy, because they're out and about and they're doing their daily lives. It is your job to actually create imagery to show them where their money is going and how it should be used. If you do not show them what happens, they tend to move to places that do and be much more effective. The next one is being authentic, and the last one is being present. When is the last time you responded to somebody through a social media network? If somebody reacts to you and likes you, or even just wants to comment and engage with you, each one of these elements are important to take it to the next level. Now, let's talk about the difference in conversation. We could say something as simple as join us at the next event. How many of you have posted that recently? Or we could say, you should really check out the crazy image we just uploaded with our CEO doing the chicken dance, because it's a fun time and you should join us. The likelihood for dialogue and engagement in the informal spectrum over here is so much higher than over on this side. This could have been anywhere. This could have been on your website. It could have been copy placed in the press release. It could have been anything that you have already produced. There is no social engagement with the left. The right has it. So when we think about developing conversations, we can be like this, or we can be like this. So the question now is not what we do necessarily, or should we do Facebook, because the environment's there. We're all on Facebook. It's actually how do we get better at creating conversations. And remember, it's not an extension of the website. Now, the websites are getting much stronger with social plugins and ability to interact with people. But in Facebook, it's a much different environment. That's where we go to continually converse with the people behind it. Not when a blog post comes out and we react instant and then never come back. It's a very different environment. So let's talk about nonprofit Facebook engagement. The first key understanding is conversational engagement tool that we discussed. The second one, fans and followers don't equal supporters. We will have, as you saw earlier, people that follow the conversation and never will act within the network or the environment that you have. And that is okay, right? That is okay to have people listen to us in social media. And it's okay for them not to react every time. That we have to cultivate our existing and potential donors that actually exist within our Facebook environment. You should, on a weekly basis, be going through and looking at who is in your environment, your community. You would do the same thing if we walked by here and there were 800 donors. You would start saying, and your board would ask you, so who all attended? Well, we had 30 donors. We had all this. We should be doing that same thing in Facebook. We should be determining who is there that we want to talk with. One of our clients is Action for Healthy Kids, a childhood obesity initiative in the country. And their Facebook environment consists of moms who want to talk and get tips about healthy environments at home. They do publicize things like policy work and everything else, but they know that if they go way too much further into that conversation, nobody will respond. They become really disappointed listeners from that standpoint. We need to use others to actually activate and get involved if we're really going to ask for support. There is an expectation that every single one of you, which I'll call an agent of the university or institution, whoever you represent, that you are going to ask for money potentially at some time. Or that you will at least be involved in promoting the organization. So you heard Caroline talk about that the peer relationship piece is going to be much better for you. And we're going to show you how to do that. And the last one is, blast fundraising is never allowed. Fundraising can be in the background of our conversations if they get there. Case in point, as you'll see here, The 4 components involved in a social media campaign: a story based upon impulse, need, conversational engagement that we talked about, a tangible, transparent request. In social networks, when we ask people to do something for us that's tangible, whether that is sign up to take a pledge, with the pledge you will receive, or please give us $5 because here's how $5 will specifically do this. The third one, imagery and video, and then the last one, community participation. There is no request in social media that works without the community involving itself. Because if you are in Facebook and you make a request, a money request, you would probably do much better if you don't engage that community just calling them and just asking for money. The community has to come to the point and say, okay, I want to support you. Here's a prime example. If I'm an organization that has mentorship, and in that mentorship program we had 45 kids apply, but unfortunately we could only do 40. We have 5 extra kids who can't get the mentors that they want. So what do? We start telling Facebook about the need that exists. We have a lot of people that want to become mentors because this is how successful the program has been. We start to converse with them about it, and if the community responds and wants us to go in and dive much more deeper, that's when we ask for money. Some organizations lead with it and say, I need your money now for the 5 people. That is not a conversation, that is a blast solicitation to a large network of people. And how many do you think will respond to it? 0. It doesn't happen. So, as we'll see here, here's a good example. The impulse, as I mentioned with mentorship, the need that exists out there, the conversation that I'm starting to stick around it. How many of you had an experience as a mentor? Let's discuss what your family was like during the summer. Let's get them to a point where they can say, yes, I absolutely agree with you. I had a wonderful summer with a mentor. Why would I not want to have that for somebody else? And then in the last part, as you can see, is that there is some sort of feedback loop, going back to the organization to then ask for support. That's how we can build fundraising campaigns, if you were to do it. This is also the same route as if you want your community to take action. If you want them to sign up for your emails, how many of you just blasted through a Facebook page, sign up for our email news? Good, nobody. Perfect. For those that do, the reason it doesn't work is that, again, that's a blast messaging. We should be talking about the conversation that's in the article associated with the e-news piece. One of our clients interviewed a boxer that's doing a lot of work with them. And the whole article was an interview. And if you've ever read an interview online in a web article, you can just tell what's going to happen each time. They're going to ask about life-changing events and all these other kinds of things. But that's best for that kind of piece, a blog, an online article. We asked our client to then go back to them and say, I need the 5 things, the best books that you're reading and the quotes that you're using, the things that got you through the struggle of dealing with cancer before you came to become a boxer, the very informal writing that would have never made it through their editors in the blogging standpoint. And we started posting that content. And people started to react. Why? Because, like him, they all dealt with cancer before. Just, he had a different track than everybody else. This same piece here, if you're going to create a campaign, use this grid: impulse, need, conversation, and then feedback loop to create the kinds of messaging that you need to. Let's talk about imagery. Images have they have so much power to us, but unfortunately we don't use enough of it. Now, there is the opportunity for you to use imagery in a timeline piece. However, remember, half of the Facebook audience is not accessing it that way. So you will have a better chance by incorporating that image into the direct post and overlaying it with text and conversation. So if this was the American Heart Association, we could post that image up on the top, and it actually tags within the feed, and it says we changed their image, and people can like it. But what's the story with it? This has to represent somebody. It's great marketing promo pieces that come on one-pagers of slick brochures, but it does nothing here unless they take the next step to talk about this person holding that sign. Or here, I mean, little kittens, right? Again, great brochure material, but unless we talk about this kitten was one of the 50 that we just rescued in New Orleans, this is the work that we do. How many of you have seen this kind of stuff happen in your communities? That's conversational engagement. We could just post it and say, I hope it rides, and if somebody comes here, it will look so nice, but it's not going to get you anywhere. Or even here. I mean, look at the the Great Iceland there, right? This is what World Wildlife Fund is doing. They're preserving this. The conversation could say something like, one of our staff members who had just done a great trip took this picture, and this is essential to what's going on in our need. The story behind these two figures represents the community that we're trying to save. That's the engagement side that we're looking for. Or even Charity Water, who does a nice, effective job with water images, obviously. If you've ever gone to their website, they do a heck of a job in video, which we're going to get to now. Earth Hour. Anybody visit Earth Hour video site on Facebook? Yeah, do a nice, effective job. Notice what they did on Facebook. This is a Facebook video screen capture I did. It's pretty inviting, right? They chose the image that they wanted to invite you to come in. If you are going to use video, which is very, very powerful, choose the right image to make somebody want to actually click it. If you just have a picture of somebody standing there and there's nothing, it doesn't make me want to click. I will move on. We have such a short time span. This is an image of an organization who works in Africa to fight those that are unfortunately slaughtering rhinos and others. And it's a fairly compelling description if you actually get a chance to read it. Unfortunately, those in the back. It invites with the conversation, the picture and image to say you should take a look at this. Now, some of you might be saying, well, that's not for me. You're also not maybe their donor who has a passion for that stuff. Imagine your own organization. If it was autism or anything else where they really cared about, they probably would. This is Charity Waters. They do a nice job, and even they're commenting. They're reacting to people viewing the content. You'll see here in the bottom right, which is tough for the back. It says, good point, Jess. We learned a lot from this individual who went and started to create wells for us. They're starting to converse more with the people, and they're bringing other people out. And as soon as some of their users begin to like our posts, it obviously reaches a bigger audience. Here is Charity Waters' actually video page on Facebook. There's a lot of great images there. A lot of ones that you would say to yourself, you know what, if I have the time, which I might, I can take a look at all of those. From the top left, obviously to the president, to an individual drinking water, and so on. The power of that image, the design of what it was in a social environment, makes it so inviting for us to take action. And what do you think's followed up in later in the video? Obviously, support messaging later on. So how do we get fans to actually do the things we want, which is challenging because we are not there to tell them, right? We're there to converse with them. Well, we can kind of shift some things around, and let me show you. The first one is, now this is a fan page that's nicely designed. Looks similar to a website, right? It's very, very nice. Now remember, we've said there's half of them not being in the mobile area. But one of the things that they've done is that what they will do nicely in their newsfeed is they will mention something and refer their user base over to the left and take advantage of things. So for instance, if they said, great conversation, Tom, really enjoyed it, there are other ways you can get involved, check out the tab on the left, click it, and like anybody else, you can get involved there in the 3 or 4 steps. They're pulling the conversation out to allow people to go into the app because not everybody just hangs out in the apps on the left-hand side or the tools. So unless we tell people to get them there, they won't. ASPCA does a lot of their work through questioning. How many of you do polling and questioning? No? Questioning that invites a response. Some of this is, as you can see, we try to move away from yes, no's, but actually converse or get to a why. You can use the polling feature as well. The other thing that they do too is as people respond, again, they're pulling them back into the app or the technology to tell them where they can go to get more information. A very nice, effective tool. American Heart Association actually launched their hands-only CPR piece through social media first, and then through some of the other outlets. And as they were starting to message them, what they did is that they left the video there and then pushed some of their social ambassadors to continue to promote it online and get people into this section. The other thing too is that you can actually share the video right here with your family and friends, and it substantially increases the professional audience. They do a nice job too with activating icons. Again, only used after the conversation pushes them there to say, and what they do in the post is they talk about things to make you healthier. How many of you need tips this Labor Day weekend to become more heart healthy? How many of you are going out and doing runs and walks right now? The Heart Association's walk in particular. And then what they'll do is they'll activate people into this area and have some of their social ambassadors, which is a group of people that help and support them, reference this in their posts. Very effective. Notice we could have started out with a blast piece that said, check out the tab on the left. We wouldn't have gotten the same reaction. 4-H. They did a campaign contest, as you can see. Who didn't want to win an iPad, right? This is an opportunity where they did a little bit of contesting there, and they shared some of their iPad with it. This was an acquisition standpoint. We will see some of these acquisition things happen. We kind of like to convert philanthropy and some of the acquisition together. Worked with the film festival where they wanted to grow their fan base, and so we had a donor provide $10 for every new fan. Not only activated, we treated them as donors. We actually said, after they gave, we would thank them publicly in the Facebook environment and say, thank you so much for supporting us. You helped us now raise $5,000, $10,000 by just liking us. Like gating in a way is what we do. Autism Speaks does a really, really nice job of advocating here. This is their email newsletter sign up. They will take nice articles, take the snippet of informal content, push it into the newsfeed, and then allow people to react to it. And then at the end, they'll come in and start talking about, make sure you sign up for eNews to get this first if you're not visiting with us on Facebook. They also do a nice piece around family services. It seems like a lot of content, right? For you, if you are in this environment. The nice thing about it is that if you were somebody late at night searching for autism resources, and you happen to go to the Autism Speaks Facebook page, and they're talking about a certain segment of autism, the great piece about it is that they could actually go into this, start talking about the different research, and direct some of their fans in the conversation to the tab to get resources. San Diego Zoo does a heck of a job branding their special event with a profile image. Hopefully you're doing that same thing. Or even if you have a new piece of content that is so good, brand it right there too as well. It could be a statement, it could be the blog post or the article, read about us right now in this, if it was such a good piece. Livestrong is a great sharing component. They also do, which is really nice, is that we can send Livestrong's fan page invitation to all of our fans and our friends and all of our friends, which is really nice. And for some of you who are looking to spread stuff, what I really like about that is that they allow, it doesn't say just join Livestrong's page, it allows them to send a personalized message in advance, which is what we would want to do. IMA receives all of their visitor reviews online. You can kind of see there's a negative one at the top. Did a really nice job with going back to them and saying, okay, yes, we messed up. Here is the phone number of my direct, and you can actually give me a call, which is good. And so they did a really, really nice job. IMA also does a really nice job online with tangible transparency. They have a web page that has dashboard systems that show where their money is going in that instant. And they direct people in Facebook to see it anytime that they have a request coming around. Autism Speaks, again, talks about where you can give money and give time. So let's end here before questions, which is there's two styles of campaigns. A multi-channel campaign that has a social media aspect within it. You probably have heard this. This is like direct mail, email, social media all together. And then we have just online social campaigns in themselves. If you are starting out trying to look at to engage in some Facebook fundraising, after you have an engaging conversation, if you have an engaging community, then I would recommend starting in online social campaigns prior to just blast messaging multi-channel fundraising. And we'll discuss. So in multi-channel fundraising, this is where you take the brand of what you're doing in a campaign. If your campaign at the end of year is titled We Help Kids, using that as a simplistic one, then you would continue that brand in some messaging throughout the social media environment. You could do it through things like highlighting some of the individuals and showing them. You could also have some of those individuals that you highlight have discussions within Facebook. You can also have in multi-channel pieces asking the community to join in on conversation in which that when you highlight the individual, you ask what is affecting them and see how the community reacts to that, see if there's any relational piece. The other thing is with multi-channel campaigns that you have to be very cautious about is that if you're doing a lot of direct mail and email around this and you're blasting them in social media, because we'll have such a big following who's our donors and email constituents, you want to be careful with overdoing it. Because you can. Because the environment is not intended to be conversational. What you can do in the same time is begin to think about what aspects of the campaign can you push into Facebook and just let sit there without anywhere else. Maybe your CEO comes on and has conversations at a certain time in which that he's talking about the particular need at the end of the year. Maybe he's to talk about what the next year brings and so forth. So these are particular Facebook aspects that have the larger brain to it. I will share with you a social media campaign and goals, and I will keep anybody that wants this presentation, I'll give this to you too. This is a sample social media campaign that talks about the various goals, the outlets, the different strategies that actually go into it, the header of what we're going to use and all of the different things, the messaging that goes into it, what Tuesday we're going to discuss about and push the community to react to. And then also what Monday general would be alternating between our regular content and our solicitations. And then much more different volunteer messages we want them to reinforce and support us as they're in the community. And then, as you can see, even a page, if we were to choose to write a page. This one was done for Child Abuse Prevention Month, in which that we took that month and talked about child abuse. And then fundraising was an option to get involved if the conversation went there. Online social campaigns, and we'll end here with some questions, 5 minutes left. So online social campaigns, these are ones that usually range from 1,000 to 5,000. And I bet almost everybody has participated in one. How many of you have given to a family or friends who's running in a walk or a race? Oh yeah. The special event model, right? It thrives in this social media aspect because what easier way to tell our friends what we're doing than in social media to join us. Now there are a lot of different platforms that make it so much easier. Remember when you'd have to go door to door to get pledges in the neighborhood on a piece of paper? Oh, those were the days. Now we have social media and aspects like Razoo and a couple of the other organizations that are doing this. There are two forms of online social campaigns that you should consider. One is those that ambassadors for you will go out and raise money. These are the people that spark their own fundraising campaigns on your behalf. This is wonderful. Usually these are your most dedicated volunteers in the world and you love them and you should support them as much as you can because they're doing your job for them. I mean, that's the thing. In this online social campaigns, besides those going out and raising money for a cause, organizations can spark those too. Pick a tangible item of $1,000 to $5,000 that requires an immediate reaction to. You have to have some immediacy to it. You would have to let them know specifically how this dollar amount of 5 and 10 will actually happen and what's the options to get their friends involved. I took a sample of what Razoo has done. Razoo is just a platform you could use. And you'll say, well, Derek, how come this didn't live in Facebook? It's not in the Facebook environment. Well, because this was the transaction portal. What they allow you to do is actually share it in Facebook. Remember, it's the message and the conversation you're sharing. You don't need to necessarily share the platform. They're not going to give right in that environment. And so what they do here is they're very specific. And what they have created was a campaign that said, you know, we're going to raise 5, they happen to raise 25, but we're going to raise this amount of money. And we're going to ask 4 or 5 of our volunteers to go out and do it. And we're going to recognize them because the peer online social campaign involves recognition, it involves training and resources, and it involves motivation. If you're not a paid fundraiser, and if you don't have those 3, you do not raise a lot of money for somebody else. Because you're not getting paid, right? You're not going out there and doing it. And so things like we need 5,000 to help our mentors and all of that, and using the immediacy factor within Facebook as the messaging component, not saying this is a Facebook campaign. We are in a campaign. We're using social as our way to reach the audiences. So as we end, 5 things to do. 1 is be human. because we all are, and we have to be human online. The second one is recruit advocates and volunteers to do your fundraising for you. I usually like to think about the 4 or 5 volunteers and the 4 or 5 donors that do a nice job to go out and tell people about our work. The third one is educate on your program through images. Tomorrow I'm going to talk a little bit about the use of imagery, and even putting text over an image does so much you won't even realize. And then the fourth one is be real. The social environment requires it, and start small. If you are going to ask for money, which money is always in the background, as you ask for money, ask small, tangible requests, only if the conversation lets you get there. So we'll spend the last 5 minutes on questions. Yes?
Could you go over pages versus groups, whether you should focus on one or the other, or do both?
So there's differing opinion on this one. So there's power in both. I think pages, not everybody joins the group piece, but I would do pages first. I'd be very effective in having a conversation with people that come to your site to like you and want to hear from you. So that would be the first place I would start. Then you can move from there and do some, with the group piece. But Facebook pages is where I would go. Also, that is where what we're hearing, at least out of Facebook, where they spend most of their time in product development, if you had to say like timeline and everything else, because that's where the brands are moving to.
You mean fan pages
Yes, fan pages.
versus causes?
No, versus groups. She was asking fan pages versus groups. Causes, is that what you're asking about? Causes, the transactional tool? Okay, so we have causes in the room? No. So let me give you a sense. So 20 to 30-year-olds, I'll give you a data point prior to the release of the research actually happens next week, but 20 to 30-year-olds, which is the highest segment on Facebook. When we asked them about whether or not they're using, we asked 7,000 millennials, that's the age bracket, whether or not they're using causes as a platform to give, or whether it was through social media messaging that brought them into another environment to give. And it was roughly around 95% have used a traditional outlet of their website and did not give through causes. So my causes friends who I know, they're a little challenging with that stat, but it's true. And it's also because we're not transacting there and it's not our intent. It's a conversational piece. And once you start moving into transactional, I mean, that's the Amazon of the world, right? That's what their product sales. You are a conversational engagement around the cause issue. So if you had to spend your time, if you get the community to a point where you can ask them for money, bring them over to your site just to do it there. The causes thing is nice, but it's not imperative. Other questions? I'll be here. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.